Revolution's never dying. Talking Stitt, oh yeah.
What's up, Stitt-Heads? We are back, man. I've had a run of some awesome guests lately, and it seems like it's just getting better and better. And well, I don't even need to give this guy much of an introduction. He's amazing as hell, and if you don't know who he is, hopefully you'll find out today. Welcome back to the show, Scott Horton, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, dude, you are awesome, and it's really cool that recently you got to be on Rogan, and I feel like you kind of melted Rogan's mind in some ways. And like, just let's start with that. What was that experience like, real quick?
Oh, it's really cool, man. Of course, I've hoped to be on there for a long time, and he finally saw a clip of me that made him think, "Oh, I do want to talk to this guy after all, I guess." And it was good. I screwed up a couple of things that I'm kicking myself over, little things, details, but overall, I thought it went real well, and I think I got to inform him and his audience about, probably to a pretty good degree, how to understand Iran's nuclear program, what it was and what it wasn't, and whether that made for a good enough excuse to have a war or not. And then also, we got a chance to talk about Ukraine a bit. I got a chance to accuse Bill Clinton of corruption stuff from old scandals back in the 90s that came up and stuff like that. Someone
It
should
was a
make a
great
short clip of
episode.
that one.
It was a great
Yeah,
episode, man.
yeah, and especially right now with the Israel-Iran war and all this going on, um, I've been doing a lot of interviews and a lot of them along the very same lines. You know what I mean? Just talking
Hmm.
about the background to America's conflict with Iran and that kind of thing. So, um, I didn't really think that we'd probably have a chance to cover much unique ground in that interview, which turned out to be true. We went down a couple of interesting old kind of angles, but for the most part, it was the same interview I've been given. But
Yeah,
then, so the question was whether it just came off okay or not, whether he liked me and whether he understood what I was saying, whether I was explaining it well enough, for the
yeah.
context and everything. And so I think it went great. He seemed to like me and whatever. So hopefully I'll be back on there. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
you and guys like Dave Smith, your great voices a reason that can actually come with like dates and names, receipts, and actual like points instead of just emotional screaming whenever it comes to a battle or a war or some bullshit going on in the economy or whatever. It's like, hey,
Right.
here's the rational thinkers. Let's break it down with our damn words, you know?
Yeah, I saw in the YouTube comments, which I'm terrified to look at the YouTube comments, but I did glance at them right at first. And I saw one of the first ones was saying that, hey, isn't it interesting how when Joe Rogan asks a follow-up question, this guy has an answer instead of retreating to some kind of analogy or something. He goes, yeah, no, that's true, and then addresses that, right? Like in context. So I, I hope, yeah, people can tell that I don't have to fill time bullshit and like God saw it up there, or Gad said, or whatever his name is. Um,
Yeah.
because because I do know about it, and I'm very concerned with open follow-up questions that I may not have the right answer to. You know what I mean? So that's my whole thing in life, is making sure I got all my follow-ups covered.
Hmm.
And if I'm wrong, then I got to fix it. So um
I
so
thought you did
yeah,
great. So I
and
didn't.
Rogan is a good interviewer. Unlike me, I'm terrible at listening. I mean, I've done 6,000 interviews, but I'm a terrible interviewer. But he's not. He really listens well and asks good follow-ups on the subject. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really like wants to drill down and really understand. So it makes him a good interviewer in that way. So yeah, I thought it went great, man. I was really happy to do it.
That's good, man, and it gets that extra voice of reason out there in the world because some people don't like Rogan, some people do like him, but it doesn't matter because they still know who he is, and a lot of things and clips and stuff come out of Rogan's out of his show, so it's a great experience for getting these things out there to the public. But also, like you said, Iran and everything, and we got, yeah, and I alluded to people being screaming up emotion versus actually just using logic and reason. Speaking of the dead, just recently, we got Lindsey Graham, who was like the top dog of just screaming emotion and death and this and that. And first of all, like, did you expect Lindsey Graham to die anytime soon? And then second of all, did you think it was kind of weird how we're not supposed to not really celebrate, but be kind of happy a warmonger is dead? You get what I'm saying? Is there?
Well, a couple things about that. I mean, I have long kind of lamented the fact that he seemed to just live forever and was going to be with us forever. He used to be part of what they called the Three Amigos, which was him and Joe Lieberman and John McCain.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, which is a great movie with Martin Short and Steve Martin and Chevy Chase, from my childhood.
So plethora of quotes in there.
Yes, there are. I like these guys. They're funny guys. Just kill one of them.
So good.
But anyways, so they're so-called the Three Amigos because they were the worst Warhawks in the Senate, right? And Joe Lieberman was voted out and then, died a long time ago. And John McCain finally died quite a few years ago now. But Lindsey Graham just seemed to stick around no matter what. And so I hadn't really considered like, oh, don't worry, he'll drop dead all of a sudden soon or something like that. I had just thought that, no, we're stuck with this guy until whenever. I don't know.
He was like Betty White of politics. He ain't going anywhere. I mean, she's dead now, but yeah, it's like, oh shit, we're going to be with him forever.
And look, no, it's true that for people with manners, you're not supposed to talk ill of the dead because you don't want people talking ill of you right after you die, and that kind of thing. And so whatever. But I think with politicians, it's different. It's just like if a uniformed officer of the law or a FBI agent in a suit comes up and starts talking to you, like that is not a human man. That is an agent of the state. And you need professional representation, right? That's not Steve who you can explain things to.
Right.
Don't explain things. Get a pro to deal with that. You know what I mean? It's like they make themselves, when you are an agent or an officer of the government, then you have a very specific and different role compared to a civilian who doesn't have political power like that. And now, obviously, he's a member of the legislature, but he's an extremely influential guy and, greatly contributed to the consensus in Washington for many wars. I mean, not the very least, Iraq, Afghanistan, and including both surges and staying the whole time for both of them, right? Not just getting into them, but staying and escalating them. He and John McCain essentially blackmailed Barack Obama into tripling the Afghan war in 2009, which he could have told them to go to hell, by the way, and he didn't. But I'm just saying that was where that pressure came from. Lindsey Graham came on behalf of John McCain, said, give us a number that starts with 3, meaning you already gave us 40,000. Give us 30 more thousand for a total of 70 more thousand troops. If you give us a number that starts with 3, and we promise we'll leave you alone. And he made that deal with them. So anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Libya, Syria, back in the Islamic State up until it's the caliphate. Then we got to go back to war against it again. He was for that too.
Yeah.
Yemen, and then his absolute bloodlust over the helpless Palestinians. I mean, people got to understand. And I know a lot of times people don't understand. If people do understand this, then I just sound like I'm being, patronizing or something, or condescending or something. But I think most people don't understand this. That because when you say Palestinians, it sounds like they're from Palestine. Because everybody has a country and you just call them Palestinians. But the thing is, there is no Palestine because Israel's on top of it. So when we talk about the Gaza Strip and we talk about the West Bank, these are Indian reservations, okay? Yep. This is occupied territory of people who were already conquered. Okay, it's not the country next door. Ben Shapiro says, what would we do if their Mexicans were shooting rockets at us across the Rio Grande? Well, by the Mexicans, he means the national government in Mexico City and its armed military.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Hamas is the strongest gang in an Israeli prison camp.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In the West Bank, you could consider the Palestinian Authority to be trustees in an Israeli prison camp. as
Yeah.
opposed to just the strongest gang. But in either case, there is no sovereignty here. Hamas is a terrorist group. They're in many ways thugs, and deliberately target civilians when they have the chance. And even when they have the chance to skip them and not kill civilians, they go ahead and make it a point to. But that's not the Palestinian people's fault. It's not like they have some kind of popular sovereignty and regular elections and
Right.
political parties and all of this stuff over there. They had one election that was forced on them in 2006 by George Bush and Condoleezza Rice. Hamas won a bare plurality in the thing. And then in a failed coup attempt where America tried to back Fatah to overthrow them, they ended up seizing total control over the Strip. But then, as Netanyahu himself admitted numerous times, he deliberately supported Hamas in order to discredit the Palestinians, as he would put it, in order to thwart. He said, anyone who wants to prevent a Palestinian state must support Hamas in Gaza. So it's much more fair to say that it was the Likud that was foisting Hamas on the poor captives of the Gaza Strip, just so that they could say to you, you don't expect us to deal with a bunch of terrorists, do you? When they're the ones who are making sure that those terrorists reign supreme in that place to make that scapegoat out of them. So they have, as they put it, as Ariel Sharon's men put it, a no one to talk to certificate. Sorry, that they got from the U.S. Congress, from Lindsey Graham. This is obviously you have no one to talk to. Because they're all a bunch of terrorists. And people can Google the Netanyahu quote. He says, "We control the height of the flame." And he denied saying that, even though there were 3 witnesses to it. He denied saying it, but now we got it on video in the BB files, which people can watch on the Tucker Carlson network or get it on the Pirate Bay, get you a VPN and watch the BB files. And there he is saying it under questioning by the Israeli Shin Bet. The Israeli, that's their FBI. And he's, of course, as indicted and on trial in the middle of a trial for corruption. And here he is interrogated by the Shin Bet, and he tells them, they ask him, why are you supporting Hamas? He says, well, you got to do what you got to do, but don't worry, we control the height of the flame. Same, cliche that he uses.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lindsey Graham, when all that blew up in Netanyahu's face, Lindsey Graham went completely crazy. And someone, it was Max Blumenthal just posted this clip, although there are numerous clips like this. But Max Blumenthal posted this clip on his Twitter, I think yesterday or 2 or 3 days ago, maybe, of Graham echoing, of course, the Israelis themselves. And when he's asked about civilian deaths in Gaza, he says, we care about civilian deaths in Tokyo.
Yeah,
I
I
care
saw
about
that.
civilian deaths and he's like angry, he's like freaking out. I'm not gonna like sit here and mimic him, right? But like those are the quotes. It's like he's like salivating and like,
dude, Jimmy Dore
stirring around in his chair, like and he's invoking the mass terror bombings of World War II against the Third Reich and Imperial Japan. When we're talking about the target here is the Warsaw Ghetto. Right, we're talking about bringing Dresden, which, by the way, Dresden was no like stronghold of Nazism, by the way, at all. But the Warsaw Ghetto, I mean, those people were helpless captives, right? And that's who he wants to bring that kind of terror bombing to. And of course, America led the world in outlawing all of that same behavior, which it already really was illegal from previous conventions or whatever, but bypassing all the Geneva Conventions, which Israel is a member of, that says that kind of behavior is completely illegal. And, they tried repeatedly to compare themselves to the Americans, but they have to go back to World War II or, maybe Vietnam, or Korea. But when you talk about like ratios of how many civilians it's okay to kill in order to get a high value target or a medium value target or whatever, they're like 300 to 1. We're hunting after, some foot soldier, and we'll kill 300 civilians in tents in order to get one guy. And then, oops, we missed, whatever.
Stay in line, Goyim.
Yeah. So their acceptable collateral damage ratios are far outside of any Western power, at all, far from the American standards, which is not to endorse what George W. Bush did, but it's just to say, the ruthlessness here is that much worse. And by the way, as long as I'm talking about this, and this is something that Lindsey Graham, again, was wholeheartedly endorsing and pushing, was this just decimation of the Gaza Strip. I know everyone has seen the drone footage.
Oh, it's terrible, dude. It's flat.
It does. It looks like Dresden, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing about Dresden is, though, they did that in a couple of nights, and they killed, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 people, I think it was. Check me on that. I think it was about 30 or 40,000 people in a couple of nights. They just firebombed and created a firestorm, essentially, which doesn't always work, but it did that time. And they created this firestorm that just completely, destroyed the hell. Everybody should read Slaughterhouse-Five. Kurt Vonnegut was there, being held prisoner. He wrote a book about it later, sort of a fictionalized account, but still. He was prisoner there at POW and lived through the thing.
Damn.
But anyway, the thing about Gaza is it's credible when, people try to say that this is embellished, but this is totally a conservative number. 80,000 dead is certainly a conservative number. And so certainly, especially when you count the excess death rate.
Yeah.
And I don't think we know exactly.
And the
how many
unfound
people have been
bodies
killed.
under rubble. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you just saw that drone footage, you might think that hundreds of thousands of people had been killed because it's Rafah and Gaza City and the rest, right? Like north, south, all the way. Virtually the whole place just razed to the ground. So you might think that the casualties were much, much higher than that. But the thing is, what happened was they bombed the hell out of them for sure. But then they would tell the survivors, now all of you move. And if you're paying close attention during that time, you would see the footage of forced marches of tens of thousands of people being forced out. And then they would come in and bomb the rest of it. And even including come in just with TNT and wire all the buildings and level them that way. And so what you're seeing there, even though it's not the mass killing of all 2 million of the people of Gaza, it's still genocide, even if they only killed 80,000 out of 2 million. Because the point of it is to completely destroy their homes, to completely destroy their businesses, to completely destroy their marketplaces, to completely destroy their schools, all government offices that would have records of land ownership, health records, family histories, genealogies, whatever. Every mosque, every church, everything of importance to the society at all. So that the place is destroyed so that there's nothing to come back to. And they said over and over again, it's to make it unlivable so that they'll voluntarily emigrate.
See, that's similar to like you alluded to, I live in Oklahoma, so it's kind of ironic that like we're talking about they kind of live in a big, what do you call it? Like a territory, a reservation, right? And Oklahoma was a reservation state or whatever. Yeah. So it's almost like they're expecting them to do like a Trail of Tears of their own. And people will say on the far right, they're like, well, they can leave. And you're like, no, they can't leave because they get shot and shit when they try to leave. They're just like, you're going to sit here and suffer. But my point is it is ironic. Like they're forced to be there. They're going to try to blow up everything. And then just, I don't know, like they're trying to erase them completely. But here we are in America. We still complain about what happened to the Indians and they were genocided and this and that. Israel was created after the genocide of Jews in World War II. And you're like, are we all not just repeating the same history all over again, just in different locations?
That's right. And look, if people make the comparison between the Cowboys and the Indians here and versus what's going on in Palestine over there, then yeah, that's a fair comparison. But if you're saying, okay, well, if we can do it, then they can do it too, then no, because the consensus here is that, no, we actually gave those people a raw deal, like far beyond, right? Like European and Native American cultures, they were coming to blows, right? Like, what are you going to do? This is going to be a problem no matter what with the settlement of the New World. But is there like essential consensus of regret that like, boy, the way they screwed them out of the Black Hills was a pretty bad deal, and the way that, you know what I mean? There's a lot of regret for that. So for us to like turn around and give license to our little buddy to go and do the same kind of thing to the people over there, to the indigenous people over there, it's completely crazy. And think about the lie that they had to tell from the very beginning. It's a land without people. For a people without land, like, oh, gee, ma, You hear that? It turns out the eastern shore of the Mediterranean had no people living on it. And like
The only place. Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay. You're a conspiracy kook if you say that there was anybody there to even be cleansed, you know?
Right.
That was the crazy theory then. Anyway, so Lindsey Graham. So he's on the wrong side of all of these things, and especially why is he bad on Iraq and bad on on Syria and all these things? Zionism. It's a huge
Mhm.
part of it. So now look, polite people and or religious people and whatever should not celebrate that anyone's dead, whatever. I mean, let me just say I am relieved. I think America is a better place without having this absolute ignorant warmongering savage in our Senate where he could not be stopped, where he was just renominated for his seat by the Republican Party. Now, I
Mhm.
got a text the day that he won his primary. I got a text from a friend of mine who's a very sincere Protestant Christian who said that he goes, I have people in South Carolina who voted for Lindsey Graham because of the rapture.
Oh no.
Because these people have been promised by their preachers that it's
Mhm.
part of God's plan that Lindsey Graham remain in the Senate to monger wars for Israel, to force Jesus to come back and rapture everyone up to heaven in their bodies. I mean, this is some David Koresh level, just horse shit. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Well, just
And
like what's his name too? Huckabee and Ted Cruz, they all subscribe to that same idea, which is just
yep,
kind of grifter mentality politics,
it,
basically.
it is. It's total claptrap. And I know it's kind of funny because I'm not a religious guy. So it's not like I'm defending Presbyterianism from those other sects or whatever. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like I don't have a dog in the thing. So it's hard for me to say like which page or ought to be interpreted what way by who or what. But I know that all of this stuff about you got to force Jesus to come back for the premillennial dispensational this and that was only invented in the 19th century, and so that means that it's stupid and wrong. Like, sorry, but
Hmm.
you know what I mean? The latest, like Joseph Darby was the latest prophet
Hmm.
of in the descendants of Abraham. Nah, I'm just not buying that, dude. Screw Joseph Darby. He's stupid, and that whole thing is stupid. And
Hmm.
in fact, by the way, and I shouldn't be such a jerk about it because there are all kinds of evangelical Christians from those particular Methodist and Baptist strains that believe in that stuff who don't believe in it anymore because they were already lied to about this 25 years ago. It's the year 2000, and George W. Bush comes in 2001, and then he's taken us to war in the Middle East. Get it? Millennium, Middle East, Christianity versus Satan, and on
Yeah.
behalf of to protect the Jews from the evil Muslim horde and the thing. And then, so where's your rapture, John Hagee? Didn't happen,
Exactly.
right? Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, where's all the magic stuff comes true? You said if I supported invading Iraq and killing 1 million people, turning this ancient civilization upside down, that Jesus would come.
And
And
that's the
oh, I
irony
get it.
too. Blowing up these
Y'all were
biblical
just
sites.
bluffing. Yeah,
Blowing up biblical sites in the name of biblical
that's right.
reason, and you're like, are we retarded here? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and so Lindsey Graham, of course, it's impossible for me to believe that he believed any of that stuff. I mean, he's perfectly happy to be the beneficiary of it.
Hmm.
And look, I mean, at this point, the country is just anti-war. Okay.
Yeah.
In Washington, you still have the war party. But um even they are very few and ineffective. You know what I
It's
mean?
the
Like you've
boomer
got
class of politicians at this point, mostly.
That's right. And if you look at Mark Thiessen and Mark Levin,
Oh, God.
Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, they have an audience of one, the president of the United States. They're not trying to
Great,
convince us. They're not even
great
bothering
point.
trying to convince us. They're talking only to him. Mark Thiessen writes his Washington Post article to Donald Trump every day. Donald Trump is wise. He knows we have to be strong and do the strong thing and hit the bad guy. Right. And then but nobody else is buying it.
Yeah.
This stuff is completely bankrupt. And so Lindsey Graham was fully like 1/5 or 1/4 of the war party in Washington. his influence, it's probably almost impossible to overstate of how
It's
much influence
insane.
he had over Donald Trump. Because you know what it is about Donald Trump's the same reason he liked John Bolton is because these guys speak in declarative sentences. They're always sure.
Oh,
They're
God.
always, they know they're right. And so they can tell him, trust me, Donald, it's going to be like this. And then he goes, all right, yeah, you guys seem to know what you're talking about. You know?
Give him a convincing enough argument, he's down every time. Yep.
Yeah. So Washington without him is better. It's the same sort of argument about Benjamin Netanyahu and whether he gets unelected here when they're facing elections in Israel. And he may very well get unelected. But all of his competitors are just as bad or worse than him
Exactly.
on policy. But here's the thing about it. Take Naftali Bennett, for example. He's more or less a secular right-wing nationalist type. Maybe a hair to the right of Netanyahu. Not really too much different from Netanyahu. But he's not as talented as Benjamin Netanyahu.
No.
And having him up there, like trying to pull all of Netanyahu's strings in place in Europe and in the United States, it's just not going to work. He just does not have the connections and the pull and the menace and the money and the everything tied up the way Netanyahu does. And Netanyahu is a fanatic, dude.
Oh,
And
dude,
he has
yeah.
been at this for a long time. And
Bennett's not going to be able to come to the White House 7 or 8 times or whatever in 1 year, you know.
that's right.
Yeah.
And certainly not in a way where he's going to be able to say to the president, all right, listen here, Mr. President, let me tell you, and just get right in there and just, you know what I mean?
Thanks for
Stand
pulling
on
my
Trump's
chair,
side
Mr.
of the
President.
desk.
Yeah, exactly. Pull it
Yeah,
out of
he's
the
just
chair.
not going to be able to do that, you know? Yeah. So it'll be a relief when Netanyahu's gone, and I'm not saying any harm should come to him. And when I say that you know, Lindsey Graham is better off dead, I'm not saying that I think that means that anyone had the right to hurt him or anything like that. You know
What
what I
do you
mean?
think
He
on the
deserved a
idea,
fair
like-
trial, but he was a war criminal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I don't lament his death any more than when a career criminal from the poorer classes are executed for murders that they commit, which are
Right.
usually in much, much smaller number compared to the chaos that this guy has inflicted.
Bingo.
As
How
a-
many
as a
wars and people have
gentleman through
died?
his
Yes.
policy, you know.
Bingo.
Yeah.
What do you
So-
think about? Have you seen any thoughts on where people are kind of conspiratorially saying that maybe he didn't make it home from Kiev because there was apparently the
nah.
strikes? I mean, I'm not saying I believe that. I think he probably did die at home. You know, he was 71 and whatever. He's old, but you know, I'm like, man, you know, that would, if that was to be true, that would be like, of course, like Operation, like let's cover this shit up because we can't let the story possibly come out that Russia took out a American politician. I don't know. I'm just like, until I see some real hard evidence, I'm not going to believe it, but it's an interesting thought. But I don't, that's what like Newsmax and a bunch of people started jumping on the, did Russia kill Lindsey Graham? I'm like, no.
Here's the thing.
Bloodlust caught up.
There's a couple things about that. First of all, I mean, I'm not saying you can just trust the New York Times, but this would be a huge positive lie that they lied if they lied. But they said that they heard the tape of the 911 call from his home.
Oh, okay.
Saying, you know, right. So like that's an added detail that they could have just not made up. But if they just
Gotcha.
made that up to put it in there to juice up the story a bit or whatever, then that'd be a huge lie that, you know, I doubt that they would have bothered to do that. That made it seem very realistic to me, although whatever. It's the
What
Times.
about the possible cover up of McConnell? Though I mean,
see,
that one's
well,
a little fishy.
But on Graham and Ukraine, though, this would have leaked. There are so many people in the national security state who absolutely hate Russia who would have loved to gin up this controversy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There's no
Zelensky
way they would have been
screaming.
able to keep that secret. Yeah. And so, like, I saw Larry Johnson. I like Larry Johnson, but Larry Johnson had a big baked-in assumption that, well, he would have had to take the train to Warsaw and then fly home from Warsaw, and he couldn't have left before this time and whatever. And it's like, well, he could have left earlier, and he might have just hopped on his Cessna and flown straight from Kiev. Why did he have to take a train to Warsaw first? You know what I mean? And then so, nah. And if he'd been exploded to death, that would have come out, man. That would have been in, or even whatever, the roof collapsed on him, whatever.
Right.
You couldn't have covered that up. That news would have leaked out of Kiev instantly. And if somehow by magic or just darkness at night or whatever, no one had known and they were able to sneak his body out of there, then word would have leaked from state and CIA and whatever straight to the Post and the Times immediately. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because there's so many people who would have wanted to exploit that to
To do more damage. Yeah.
prevent, yeah, to try to prevent diplomacy and the end of that war.
Okay, I like
So
that. But
that's a
I was
huge
just bringing
topic.
up because it's like a conspiracy theorist dream right now because of the timing of it. Because you're like,
There's
well,
so
that's
many, yeah.
extremely weird. But then it's also in this weird thing where you'll see the memes with like the Grim Reaper playing the claw machine, and you're like, Lindsey Graham, holy shit! I thought it was going to be Mitch McConnell, because we had the
Oh,
last
that's
week
funny.
and a half of Mitch McConnell like, where's Waldo right now? And then Lindsey Graham just randomly is gone. And you're like, well, that's strange. And we're still.
Yeah.
Then we get the picture of Mitch with his wife sitting there after she had took off to China, and you're like, dude, what the hell is going on right now? And there's also, you might be able to answer this better than I've found, but if Mitch McConnell had possibly died, wouldn't there be a possibility that Massey could take his position? So that could be a lie to possibly upkeep to, you know what I mean? Like they just gave Massey the finger in his primary, but then if Massey could be like, screw you guys, I'm back. Like, I mean, in a bigger position, actually, wouldn't he? But I don't know. I'm just saying that's a bunch to unload. But
Yes,
McConnell
no, that would
himself, that's a
be
weird one.
that would be the motive if they were covering up his death. It would be they got to keep it going past August 3rd so that Massey can't get in there. But then he'd only be in the seat till the end of the year anyway.
Hmm.
So, I'm not sure, if they would really do that. Um, but I don't know if the guy's really alive or dead or what. I saw Sam trying to
So
stay off
weird.
of Twitter. I
Yeah.
saw a thing that said that picture of him was fake, but I don't know if that's true or what. Um, a couple of people swore that they talked to him on the phone. Like they're probably not lying about that, as far as like how bad he is. And see, and then as far as him and Graham being that dead or near death, that near to each other in time,
Yeah.
is just the fact of look at how old these people are in our House of Lords, and it just goes to show on the face of it, prima facie kind of deal, right? That you just look at it. Oh, well, America is terribly corrupt.
And
Or
old.
how come we have such low turnover rates in our upper chamber, man?
Bingo.
Why are there so many people in their 70s and 80s? That should be impossible. It should not be that once you get a Senate seat, you get to hold on to it for the rest of your life. And it should not be that the political systems in the 50 states could allow for that to happen. Like, what in the
Hmm.
hell is going on with us, man? You know what I mean? It's one of those things on the face of it shows that our system is broken and terribly broken,
Well,
that
it was
you'd have so
originally
many
founded
people in
on
there.
servitude to the people versus now it's career politicians. And that's not what it was founded on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always bad, but it shouldn't be this bad. It's,
Right, right.
it's
There
a
was
very
better
ossified
intentions.
empire. Yeah,
There was better intentions. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, that's true. And you know what it is too, is it's the amount of power that there is to abuse. And when
100%.
there's that much at stake, then it becomes that much, less thinkable that you would leave and allow the other guy to get in there because the other guy's worse. And what would he do with all that power? The other thing that, so that's what, as Justin Raimondo said, politics is all about who you hate, meaning the
Mm.
right and left coalitions in America are basically built around keeping the other guys out. Is it more important to you to keep the Republicans from winning, or is it more important to you to keep the Democrats from winning? That's the
Yeah.
question, right? It's never which side do you like, it's which side is worse. And man, if you just cannot abide that side, well, then you got to line up with this one. That's your only choice to get over that 51% winner take all kind of a line.
It's like
That's
a
where these
Thanksgiving
coalitions come
football
from.
game or something where everybody's together and you have to watch it, but you don't really care about either of the teams. But now that it's on, you're like, well, I have to pick one of these two because I'm watching it, even though these aren't my teams. It's like,
Yeah.
and it is kind of funny that like transparency administration is, air quotes as heavy as possible on that. But, that's why like the distrust of everything at this point. And dude, 2016 Trump, 2015 Trump energy compared to 2026 Trump energy is just, I mean, I don't want to keep you all night. I know you got to jump on your show here soon, but like, what are your thoughts on like the hypocrisy of just? Yeah, I'm a libertarian as well. I'm still registered libertarian, but I don't know if I'm voting anymore. If you don't give me a damn good option of anybody, I mean, not any party at this point. But I'm saying with Trump,
Yeah.
is it not the same argument where he is right now currently as Biden? Sleepy Joe is very similar to to Donald Trump right now, and it's just kind of ironic that these, mostly Trump fans and boomers and everybody, they're still just eating up everything, even though 4 years ago they're posting Biden memes of Sleepy Joe and this. We're just living in the land of confusion and hypocrisy right now.
Yeah. No, it's totally right. I used to say about Joe Biden that, look, man, you don't have to know anything about politics or history or geography or nothing, right? Like you could be just your auntie's next door neighbor lady and just take one look at Joe Biden and be like, oh, well, he's too old for this,
Yeah.
right? There's just no way that guy could be the president of the United States right now. You know what I mean? President of the United States should be in his 50s or something. What do you mean this guy's, older than Reagan was when he left office? He's right. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And
That
it's,
is
yeah,
nuts.
exactly. Same thing with Trump. And Trump's pretty young for his age. And there are, I know one particular 80-something-year-old who's got his wits about him pretty dang sharp. But I probably still wouldn't make him the president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a big job. And Trump, he already is, a lot of times a pretty half-baked thinker, likes to just, in a W. Bushian fashion, just go from the gut because he's bored of learning about the thing. So just go ahead and choose option A
Right. Yeah.
when he really doesn't have to. So, um, look, no, and especially right now, man, no confidence. I really wish that he would resign and let somebody else take over. The way that he, man, honestly, I don't even really think that his policies are that jumbled. But just the fact that he won't shut up and
Mm,
let his people do the jobs that he appoints them to do.
great
It
point.
just makes, here he started a war. He's assigned his vice president to try to negotiate an end to the thing. But then he just acts totally like a jackass and tries to sneak some ships through Omani waters when that wasn't the deal, man. And
Yeah.
then it all blows up again. And then he launches a huge series of airstrikes. And, we're now the midway deal, this MOU is essentially canceled. I don't know if it's really officially canceled. I guess it is. And he's just kind of, boxed himself in like rhetorically to having to extend the war that he promised wouldn't take more than 4 or 5 weeks back when he started it,
Yes.
max. And it's just, and we got 2.5 more years of this. I don't know. And look, I mean, bottom line on the Iran war for people just catching up, we lost, right?
Exactly.
Not that Iran is coming here, but America completely failed. The U.S. government completely failed to inflict its strategic aims on to Iran. They do not have to accept a single one of our dictates, and in fact, they called our bluff by hitting every single base we have in the region, and including many more in Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, and Kuwait just the other day, just
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. I don't know what's the latest from today. So Trump has to figure out. I mean, if you saw Vance on Joe Rogan, he
I
says,
watched the
"Look,
first hour. I didn't finish it all though.
okay, so, pardon me,
You're fine.
on the Iran part, um, he says what Trump has assigned me to do is he's assigned me to get a deal with them to achieve two things: no nuclear weapons and free trade through the strait, free flow of oil through the strait." Well, they already weren't making nuclear weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and we already had an open strait. That's
Mm-hmm.
first of all. Secondly, though, I don't know if Vance can get a deal. Maybe he can, but I don't know if he can get a deal where Iran dismantles their civilian nuclear program to such a degree that Trump will accept that. Trump has agreed to move the line to where Israel says, which is no enrichment at all, no real nuclear program at all. And they're never going to accept that. And we are in no position to demand that they do because we didn't win the war.
Right.
And then on the strait, they essentially already conceded. Iran owns the strait. They didn't used to.
That is crazy.
area had always been treated as international waters, even though it's within the 12.5 mile border either way, um, from Oman's side and from Iran's side. So now, as a consequence of the war,
We gave them
Iran
more
owns
power.
that strait. They
Yeah.
will charge tolls. They will control that strait, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it, and including, all of Vance's best diplomacy and all his promises to lift all sanctions and whatever that he can do. I'm really not sure that there's a deal that is achievable
At this point,
here.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So where does that leave us, you and me and the country and Donald Trump in this stupid war that he can't wrap up?
Right.
You
And
know,
then he might leave to us if he leaves office and it's still not completed at this point,
Yeah, and now, I mean, the thing is too is he understands the limitations here. I mean, for all this talk about Cargill, and I sure hope I ain't proven wrong about this, but I don't think they're going to do it because the risks are just too great.
The
Donald Trump
Marines
is
are
dumb,
going to
but
take
he ain't
Carg
stupid.
Island. If fucking Lindsey Graham, sorry.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham. Yeah, just go ahead and get in there and do it. Okay, but you're talking about putting,
Iwo Jima.
yeah, you're going to put your top tier guys on there and then they're going to get blown up to death, man.
Oh man.
It's going to look really ugly. And Donald Trump is a lot more sensitive to that than Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
It ain't Lindsey Graham's ass on the line for that one. It is Donald Trump's. And he's terrified of, he's been quoted over and over again on Iran and on Venezuela, both, as he cannot be seen as Jimmy Carter, who had the terrible Operation Eagle Claw in 1980, where the kind of Green Berets or whatever, special forces guys got stuck out there in the desert and 8 of them died and the plane crashed into the helicopter or vice versa, whatever it was. And that was just a humiliation for Carter right before the election. And Donald Trump remembers that like it was yesterday. And so that kind of thing where you have not just a Bay of Pigs where you're getting foreigners slaughtered, but where you send your own guys in without good enough force protection and they get hit real hard. He was
Not
taking
good.
an awful risk with that, apparent attempt to get the uranium that they
Yes.
said was the rescue op and all that. Like that itself was a real risk. And so I don't know, man. I think that's the one thing that we have going for us, right? Like with Barack Obama, it's like the one good thing about this guy is his cowardice. And thank God that he's not really willing. I mean, Trump was willing to bite the bullet and launch this war, which he absolutely should not. And Barack Obama sure launched plenty of wars too. But there were times where he would go, whoa, 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 we're not doing that though. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think hopefully we have that same thing with Donald Trump, where he can't see his way out of this, but he still is reluctant to really, triple down and make it that much worse. And I think the overall takeaway from Vance's interview with Rogan is that the policy is diplomacy. We're going to solve this with diplomacy. He wasn't up there threatening the Iranians. He was up there defending his diplomacy from the Hawks and saying, I was told by the president to accomplish this. You guys leave me alone. And so the overall policy remains, Mr. Vice President, figure out a deal here to end this conflict. So,
We'll see. At this point,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. All I
hopeful
can
but
think
not
of is
optimistic, I guess,
the Wayne's World scene where they're playing street hockey, and Wayne and Garth are Trump and Vance right now. Car, move the goal. Game on, move the goal back. Car, move it. And it's like Garth is JD Vance right now, just following Wayne, and that's like it keeps playing in my brain over and over. That's
a great analogy, man. I like that.
It's exactly what it is, man. Straight's open, straight's closed, straight's open.
Yep.
Man, I love listening to you, brother. I can't appreciate you enough for your time. This is awesome. Remind everybody if they don't know where they can find you, and I know there's a good plug for your show you're getting ready to go jump on. So appreciate your time, brother.
Okay, well, here over my right shoulder, these are the books I wrote: Fool's Errand, Enough Already, Provoked. Over here, these are the books I published: libertarianinstitute.org/books. Check out the Scott Horton Academy is the deep dive on the Middle East, as well as the new Cold War with Russia and the Ukraine war. And we're doing a 20% off discount on for summertime. Promo code summertime at scotthortonacademy.com and save 20% there. And
Nice.
otherwise, check out my interview show, The Scott Horton Show, and I'm on in 15 minutes with Daryl Cooper live on the YouTubes for our show Provoked.
I love it. And also, Trump's got some speech tonight, but I don't know if I'm even going to listen to it. I'm probably going to smoke a bowl. Anyways,
I'm going to miss it, but I read about it. It's going to be about the elections.
Something
I
about
don't know
China.
whether past or future or what. but
Yeah.
it's boring.
We'll see. Who knows? I'll smoke a bowl and maybe tune into the end of it. Guys, I can't believe Scott's back on my show, but anyways, I'm going to let him go. He's got to go check out his show. Go check out everything he does, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye. However, I stop recording this damn thing.